I've got 3 products here: an Apple iPad, a Huion drawing tablet, and a Nintendo Switch 2. He's a total fanboy, that's why he's including that one here. I'll admit it, I have a problem. Now, each of these 3 products is affected by these new tariffs in different ways. Now, I thought might be a good idea to walk through what we can expect to see in terms of price increases over the next few months. So, Little Brad, tell us how this works. When a shipment comes from another country into the US, usually by boat, sometimes by plane, it docks and all of the items on board go through customs. This is where the tariff is collected by the US government. Okay, so who pays this tariff? That depends. Sometimes it's the person who ships it, sometimes it's the person who's receiving it. A few years ago, Huion sent me a drawing tablet to review, and it was pretty expensive. DHL, who was shipping it, called me and said, "Yo, Brad, you need to pay us another $64 so we can clear this through customs." So one thing is for sure, whatever gets shipped over here is not leaving customs until someone pays that fee. So if you own a business here in the US, anything you import from China, you are the one who is going to have to pay that tariff. And to make that money back, you're probably going to charge more for your products to cover the cost. So the current tariff on goods coming from China into the US is 145%. So you might assume that a $1,000 Huion drawing tablet would cost 145% more. But tariffs are not calculated based on the retail price. The retail price is the price you pay. Tariffs are calculated on the declared value of a good. What is that? The declared value of a good is what that good is worth to the manufacturer. So this $1,000 drawing tablet might have a cost of $500 to make, but the price that you, as the consumer, pays takes into account other costs: marketing, the price of shipping, the price of storing the product in a warehouse, the money that the reseller of that product makes, and eventually the money that the company who actually makes it takes in as profit. So that would be 145% on $500. Yeah, so after the cost of tariffs on a product like this, we might be looking at something in the neighborhood of $1,725. Still yikes. Okay, so maybe there's still some good news here. After these tariffs were announced, there was a new exception made for some electronic items. So those exemptions are for, okay, this is just a bunch of numbers. What am I looking at here? So these numbers are for product categories that are exempt, like semiconductors, laptops, flat panel displays. Oh, so this is a drawing tablet. That's a flat panel display. Maybe? Nobody knows for sure right now. So it is possible that many of the things that I review here may be completely unaffected by the tariffs. So maybe not. The president himself said a day or two after giving these exemptions that they were only temporary and that he's going to be repealing them sometime in the future. So we're not really sure. One thing to be super careful about right now as a customer in the US is do not buy anything directly from a manufacturer in China. Tell him, Little Brad. Do not buy anything directly from a manufacturer in China. I don't know how Huion does it, and as I said a minute ago, I don't know if this is or is not exempt on Huion's website. They say they offer free shipping, but there's a lot of funky stuff going on with shipping right now. Don't be this guy who paid $600 for a 3D printer and then had to pay $868 to get it out of customs. Keep in mind, this printer was already paid for. He had already sunk $600 into this purchase, and it's not like he could just send it back and get his money back. He's just screwed. Okay, so all of this applies to the iPad as well, right? Nope, this guy's a little different because he's made in Vietnam. Some of the larger companies who could afford to, like Apple, Samsung, started moving their manufacturing out of China to Vietnam after some of the first tariffs on Chinese goods went into effect in 2018. Now, when these tariffs first announced back on like April 2nd, Vietnamese goods were being taxed at 46% under these new rules. But just a few days later, that was rolled back to 10% for the next 90 days. Now, it has been over a month since that's happened, so that might change a month or two from now. Nobody's really sure. So Apple products like this iPad are relatively unaffected at the moment from these new tariffs. One thing that a lot of folks are worried about is the knock-on effects that higher prices have in some industries. So for example, if every laptop out there is made in China except for Apple's laptops, those are going to be more expensive. Apple might look at that as an opportunity to raise their prices while still undercutting their competitors because they have less competition in the marketplace. So can I talk about you want to talk about the Switch too? Is that what you're asking? Go ahead. Sweet. So Nintendo, like Apple and Samsung, also started moving their manufacturing over to Vietnam. Now, about 1/3 of all Switch 2 units are being manufactured there, while the other 2/3 are still being made in China. And based on sales of the Switch 1, about a little over 1/3 of all the sales that Nintendo had in that time were here in North America. So after these tariffs were announced, which unfortunately happened to be the day that the Big N happened to have their big unveiling event, they had to postpone their North American pre-order dates by a few weeks. They were clearly taken off guard by these Vietnamese tariffs that day. Interestingly, around the same time, the Canadian pre-orders were also postponed. Why? Well, Canada didn't enact any new tariffs on China or Vietnam. So supply chains, they're fickle things. A lot of companies who do ship in bulk, and they will bring everything into one port here in the US and then drive it out to where it needs to go anywhere in North America. And that's exactly what Nintendo did. The Switch would land in the US, they drive it into Canada. So even though Canada doesn't have any tariffs, they still had to pay tariffs on everything coming in through the US. And that's not even mentioning all the new tariffs between the US and Canada and Mexico. That's outside the scope of the video, Brad. It's also worth noting that even though the Switch is an electronic device, video game consoles are not one of the exempted electronic items that we talked about before, which is why we saw Xbox prices go up last week. Now, something that's really hurting businesses as much or more than the tariffs themselves is just the chaotic way that they've been rolling out over the last few months. It is very, very hard to make decisions when you don't know what the rules of the game are. And so a lot of businesses that need to decide what to do, whether it's release a new product or order more stock of a product or to just build a factory to make that product, have just put all of those decisions on hold. And we see it here in our own little community. I've seen a lot of artists who rely on selling merch just stop ordering products because they don't know if the price they pay when it gets on the boat is going to be the price they pay when they have to unload it off the boat a week later. Brad from the future, quick note. If a tariff went into effect while a product is in transit, it is not subject to the new tariff price. And who this really hurts are small businesses. Sure, Nintendo and Apple, their profits will go down. It's going to hurt their stock price, but they can weather this storm. It's absolutely decimating small business owners. Right here on YouTube, Jazza canceled his latest product weeks before launch after spending tons of his own money on like R&D and stuff like that because in the year or so that he was developing it, all of his prices of what he was going to charge for this thing were based on how many units he could sell all around the world. And with the US market making up a huge percentage of where he sells being like a complete unknown in terms of cost, he just couldn't do business here. And in turn, since he couldn't sell here in North America, he couldn't justify the expense of selling the product at all. He couldn't cover his costs. He's not an outlier. These are decisions that are being made all over with small and medium-sized companies in every industry across the board. So I don't know what this holds for the future of the prices of these specific products. Some of them are definitely going to be going up. But I think the ecosystem of things around these products, whether we're talking about styluses or screen protectors or some of the other things that I talk about and review and rely on for much of the work I do, I don't know if they're going to exist a year from now. But what is your take on this? Let me know down below in the comments. If you like this style of video with me talking to little Brad, check out some of the videos I'm linking up here. And a way to support this channel is checking out my courses, like Learn to Draw in 60 Days course, or my Intro to Digital Art course. There's some links for those down below. Thank you guys for watching.